The name of this sermon is Live in Reality. I think that sometimes we are living in a not reality because we are trying to put like masks and layers to ourselves. Depending on the place where we are at, we want to try to be someone that we're not. And sometimes we don't live in reality. Sometimes we live in a virtual reality or something like that, that we're pretending to be somebody that we are not. We're pretending to be someone that we are not. So we have masks, and we have a mask for church, we have a mask for work, we have a mask for home. And I think it's very important for us to talk about this morning. And part of living in reality is the word integrity. And the word integrity means how your actions are connected to what you're saying, what you're preaching, or what you're thinking. Ron, please go to the next slide. So it's how your actions make sense with what you're saying. How your actions make sense with what you're thinking. Because sometimes what we say, we don't act that way. What I preach, I don't act that way. What I think, I don't act that way. And when we're doing that, we're living in a different, we are not living in reality. And we are not being honest, and we're not having integrity. And integrity is a very important word when we are Christians, because Jesus was upright. He had integrity. And sometimes, because, I don't know what happens, but a lot of times we pretend to be somebody that we're not. And it's because it's something that we haven't worked in ourselves, and it's something that we haven't worked as a community to be able to welcome others' opinions and other people's feelings and how other people thinking and things like that. So people became not upright just because of the scenario as well. But integrity is very important. And I like to clarify something. Actions are different than behavior. So it's a different. So if you go to a concert, then the behavior is to be, happy and fun and enjoying the concert. But an action, when you're faking an action, is when you don't want to be in the concert, when you don't like the singer, but you're telling to your friends, oh, I love that singer. So behavior is not the same as actions. So this morning, we're going to talk about actions, how our actions are connected with what we say or what we think. Okay? And in Proverbs, we can see Proverbs 11:3, it says, the integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. So I like this translation because it translates duplicity. When we are not upright, so when we have no integrity, we are two different people. We are, what would be the word? We are double? That's the word? Divided, yeah. So if I have duplicity, then I divided. So I have to act in a different way when I'm at church, and I act in a different way when I go home. And then we put some masks, So we're a double person. I react and I act in a different way. I'm a different person at church, and when I go home, I start yelling and saying things and things like that. But when I put a step in the church, it's like, I love you so much. You see my wife, she's so beautiful. I call her princess, but at home I don't call her princess. It's that kind of stuff. And why is that going on? And in Spanish, I'm using this one, the New International Version, and in Spanish, Versión Internacional uses the word hypocrisy. And we're going to see that word because Jesus was against being double. Jesus was against that. I don't know if you have watched a movie that is called Split. And this guy has 23 different personalities. And he reacts in a different way. And at some point, the other personality is active and he starts saying something. And when you're watching the movie, you believe in that reaction. Because sometimes he's really mean. And then at some point, he's like, hi, what I was doing. And then at some point, he's a baby. Hi. And you're like, whoa, what's going on? And sometimes we are like that because we are something here. When we go home, we are something completely different. When we go work, we are a different person. And the people around us at work wouldn't believe what we are at church. And the people around us at church wouldn't believe what we are at home. And that's not what Jesus wanted from us. And that's not the kind of Christianity and the kind of community that Jesus wants us to have. And Jesus was against the opposite. And we're going to go all over Matthew 23. And I would like to start Matthew 23, verse 1 and 3. Jesus said, Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, The teachers of the religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses. So practice and obey whatever they tell you, but don't follow their example, for they don't practice what they teach. Ouch. Can you believe that Jesus will come and say to my youth group, hey, listen to what Danny is telling you. Do whatever he tells you, but don't do what he does, because he is not a good example. Oh. And it looks like something that makes sense, because Danny tells a lot of things. Is he practicing everything that he's telling? It's hard to do all that. Are you doing that, Danny? And what about if Jesus come and say that? Hey, listen to Danny this morning and do what he's saying, but don't do what he does. Because he's not upright. He doesn't have integrity. He's not living what he's preaching. But we're living in that world. And sometimes we are that kind of people. I don't know about you, but can you believe Jesus telling people around you? So practice and obey whatever they tell you, whatever you tell them, but don't follow their example, for they don't practice what they teach. Now we go to verse 4. They crush people with unbearable religious demands and never lift a finger to ease the burden. So we're putting burdens on other people, like responsibilities on other people. You have to be this way. You have to be this way. You have to be a person that loves people. You have to be a person that loves God. But I don't want to love people, and I don't want to love God. But you have to do it, You have to go and make disciples, but I'm not going to make any disciple. Are you related with that? And we can compare verse 4 with verse 13. And in verse 13, we read, what sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you, Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You won't go in yourself, and you don't let others enter either. So it's like sometimes with the burdens that we want to put on other people, with the responsibilities that we want to put on other people, just because I'm trying to be somebody that I'm not, and I'm pretending to be some kind of Christian or whatever, and because I'm pretending to be this kind of Christian, I would like to put responsibilities on you. And in that sense, I like to compare these two verses, verse 4 and verse 13, because it says, you won't go in yourself, because I'm being double, because I'm being a hypocrite. I'm not going in the kingdom of God, but I'm not letting other people come into the kingdom of God because of what I'm asking them to do. Because my actions doesn't make sense with what I'm preaching. My actions are not connected with what I'm saying. My actions are also not connected with what I'm thinking. And there are two ways of this that we can see this. Is I am not upright with myself. It means that I want to be somebody different. So when I come to church, I pretend to be the best Christian, Oh, yeah, I read the Bible every day, yeah, let's pray. I pray. I like to pray, I like to sing and that kind of stuff. So there is a way where for myself, but there is something else and something that we can see as well, and it's how we as a community are letting other people to be themselves and not telling them, you cannot be real here. You have to fake. It's like, you cannot be that way here. And again, there's a difference between behavior and actions. So act is the same word for acting. So it's like when you're pretending to be somebody that you're not. That doesn't make sense? It's like, it's how we as a community are allowing people to be real here. Or we don't want reality here. We don't want to live in reality here. We like to live in this way, the way we are all faking here. I'm not talking about this church in particular or something that I saw. Somebody will say Danny's talking to me, but I'm talking to nobody and I'm talking to everybody at the same time. But let's go to verse 5. Verse 5 say, everything they do is for show. On their arms they wear extra wide prayer boxes with the scripture verses inside, and they wear robes with extra long tassels. So it's like everything they do is for show. And I was having a conversation with a former singer from an a cappella group. And he was saying that sometimes he was in the van fighting with one of the other members, and then he had to go in front of the church, and then they have to fake like everything is perfect. But they were just fighting in the van, and they didn't like each other. But then when they come to the front, it's like, oh, hi. And he was telling me that, and I was like, I'm gonna preach about that. But and I was while he was saying that, I was thinking at the same time, but how does it look at church that live in reality? How does it look at church that live in integrity? Because I think we don't live all the time in integrity and all the time in reality, that I don't imagine a church that live in reality. I mean, and I asked him, so how will be a church? I mean, if you were fighting, what are you supposed to be? How are you supposed to be in the front? Or you're not going to sin because you were just fighting? How is that going to operate? And he was like, no, I'm just going to be real. I'm just going to say when I'm in the front, I don't want to be here because we just have a bad conversation, but I will do it anyway because I love God and I love you guys. And I was like, yeah, that sounds more real. That sounds more okay. And he was connecting that story with another story, and he was like, sometimes I disagree with the words, with the lyrics of the songs, but I will sing the songs anyway as I believe the songs, and I will have to close my eyes and sing the songs. And he's like, and I was like, well, then how will be a church where you disagree with the songs, and what are you going to do? I mean, are you not going to sing that part of the song, or how is that going to look like? And he was like, I will be able, if I feel free to be real, I will be able to say, you know what? I don't believe in in the lyrics of this song. I'm going to sing the song anyway because maybe you believe in that song. You know, because maybe that song is connected to you somehow. So it's how reality can be here. How can I be real in here? How can I not be a double person here? It's hard sometimes to understand how that will look like. But I think that's what Jesus was telling the Pharisees. You are hypocrites because you are trying to do something that you're not really doing. And everything you do is for show. And this is not a show. We are not performing here. This is reality. Jesus is here. And Jesus knows everything about you. You don't have to fake to be here because Jesus is here and he knows everything about you. So Jesus explains that lack of integrity in verse 25. In verse 25 he says, what sorrow awaits you, teachers of the religious law? And you, Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. So that reminds me of a story. I was in another city, and I wanted to go to the downtown and to visit the city because I have never been there before. And I asked someone to take me to the downtown. That person said yes. When we were walking in the car, the car looked nice. I mean, regular car. When I opened the door, I saw it's the worst car I have ever been in my life. It was horrible. I mean, you couldn't believe it. It was not like there was like 5 trash. No, it was pack of trash that my feet were on the trash. I mean, it was a floor of trash on the front and on the back. And I was like, at some point we were in a stoplight and I was thinking, I would just want to open the door and leave the car. I feel really bad inside that car because it was really, really dirty. And sometimes Jesus is saying, for you are so careful to clean the outside of the cup. So sometimes we are so careful to clean how we look like. You know, if I look like that I'm happy, then they will think that I'm always connected with God, because who can be sad if we are with Jesus? You know? If I pretend that I'm a religious person, if I pretend that I read the Bible, if I know a couple verses by memory, then people will think that I read the Bible. You know, so sometimes we clean the outside. So we just have a bad conversation with my wife, but when you get into the church, we're going to be fine. And then we'll have the conversation after church. It's like sometimes we are careful to clean the outside because we want to pretend to be somebody that we're not. We just want to pretend to be something that we're not, or that we disagree. For you are so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. And self-indulgence is when you are always thinking about yourself, when you're just pleasing yourself, your desires. You're just thinking every day of your life how to please yourself. But when you come to church, you pretend that you want to please everyone else, that you want to please others. And that's not what Jesus is wanting us to have, because he is against that. He is telling the teachers of the law They were the interpreters of the law. They could open the book of Moses and they could say, according to what this says, let me interpret this for you. They were the only guys allowed to do that. So they have authority. They read. They studied the Bible. They were into that. They lived that way. And he's talking to Pharisees. And Paul was one of the Pharisees. So it's like he's talking to people that was into the religion. And he's telling them, you are hypocrites. And then we come to verse 27. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you, Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. I'm completely sure that you didn't wake up this morning saying, can't wait for Danny to read Matthew 23:27 to me. It will be really nice for me to listen from Danny that. I'm sure we don't want to listen to that, Because this is church, everyone is happy, and we are all, living the love of God, and why are we these kind of people? But he was talking to the religious people. He wasn't talking to Gentiles, people that didn't have God at all. He wasn't talking to Samaritans. He was talking to the guys, Hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. We may look really nice here, but Jesus knows exactly what is in our hearts and what is in our minds. Jesus knows exactly what we're doing during the week, what we're doing when we are by ourselves, what we're doing when we are just by ourselves with our phones, what we're doing when we are at work, what we're doing when we are with our friends, what we're pretending to be everywhere. Jesus knows everything, and that's why he was telling them, you are hypocrites, because you look pretty nice outside, but you're just filled with dead bones. So how do we look when we are at school? How do we look when we are at work? How do we look when we are around friends? How do we look when we are home? How do we look when we are alone? And then verse 28, outwardly you look like righteous people, but inwardly your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. I'm reading this book, What Will Jesus Deconstruct? And he's quoting another book. This book is What Will Jesus Deconstruct? And he's quoting another book that the name is In His Steps. And he's talking about a person that lost, this isn't a novel, this is not real, but he's talking about a person that lost his wife, and he is by himself being a single, that was the word, single father, just with the daughter, but he couldn't take care of the daughter because he didn't have enough money. And he said, and now this person says this, it seems to me there's an awful lot of trouble in the world that somehow wouldn't exist if all the people who seen such sons went and lived them out. I suppose I don't understand, but what will Jesus do? And it's like, how will be the world if what we're singing in the mornings, we go and do and live that? Wouldn't it be a different world? Sometimes we don't even understand what are the songs about. Well, we're just singing, and maybe you're not pretending, but sometimes I'm pretending that I understand the songs. Sometimes people ask me, or Princess, and after conversations, like, do you understand that line that you sang? And I was like, no, not exactly. I haven't talked about it. But I'm here in the front singing that song for you. And I don't even understand the song. And this person is saying, wouldn't it be different? It seems to me that there's an awful lot of trouble in the world that somehow wouldn't exist if all the people who sing such songs went and lived them out. And it's just because sometimes we're just pretending. We're just trying to be somebody that we're not. We're not living what we're singing. We're not living what we're preaching. And that's not what Jesus wants. So what about if instead of pretending, we live what we say? What about if instead of pretending, we live what we preach? We live what we ask. We live what we want others to do to us. How will be a world if instead of pretending, we do what we think? Because sometimes I'm thinking, I don't want to be here, but I pretend that I like to be here. You know? I don't want you to raise your hands, but I saw some people laughing. So, what about if instead of pretending, we live what we feel? Because sometimes my feelings cannot be real. Sometimes, like, you cannot feel sadness. And we were having a conversation on Wednesday, and John said that when he went to church, Mom will say to John, you cannot be happy here. Take that happy face off of you. Something like that. You have to be like, because this is solemn. You know, this is a solemn place. It's like, what are we telling to our kids when we're saying that? In another way, we're telling them, please lie. Please lie. You know? Please lie. Don't be like that. Please lie. You know, because if you don't lie, then what that people's going to think about me and about my teachings and about my discipline and things like that. So how are we as a community welcoming, is that a word? Welcoming the feelings and the reality of others? How are we as a community enabling, or giving the opportunity for other people to feel and to be real? Because I would like to work in their reality than in their fakeness. If I know you don't want to be here, then it's okay for you to say that, because then we can have a conversation why you don't want to be here. What's going on in your life, and let's work on that. But if you pretend that you're happy here, then when I'm going to say something to you and when we're going to work together? So what about if we, instead of pretending, we live in a way that Jesus wants us to live? And how is that going to look like? Then we can go to verse 26. You blind Pharisees, first wash the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will become clean too. So wash the inside first. That's what Jesus is telling us. Before you want others to clean their lives and their feelings and their thinkings and whatever they want to clean, please wash you first inside. Please wash your inside first. And then when you wash your inside first, then your outside will become clean. But we normally do the opposite. We want to clean our outside. I don't know if we are thinking or pretending that at some point that's going to clean our inside. If I pretend that I'm happy, at some point I'm going to be happy. That's not going to happen. But if you work on your inside, why I'm not happy here, what am I supposed to do, or what am I supposed to say to others so I can feel happy here, then your outside is going to look better or whatever. So watch the inside. See what's wrong with you. Know your reality. You need to know yourself to watch your inside. Because if you don't know yourself, if you're so used to pretend, if you're so used to be fake, then you don't know what are you going to wash inside. You're going to say right now, I have nothing to wash inside. You will be like, I have nothing to wash inside, really? Hey, shh. Silence. Just like. So, and we may be living to, and when we're doing that, we're lying to each other and to Jesus, because he's here and he knows everything about us. So number one, wash the inside. Number two, verse 23. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you, Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are so careful to tithe even the tiniest income of your herbs gardens, but you ignore the more important aspects of the law: justice, mercy, and faith. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things. So here, what Jesus is telling you is, you need to understand what is more important. What is more important for me? It's more important for me that you are real, that you're not lying to yourself and to others, than that you are singing songs that you don't like or that you don't understand. Is it more important for me that you show your reality, that you show yourself how you are, so that we as our community can work together on that, than you're pretending that you are the best husband or wife. But when you go home, you are horrible. You're a person that no one wants to live with. But when you are at church, it looks like you're the best dad ever, you are the best friend ever. Jesus doesn't want that. And he is telling you what is more important. He was telling them, you were doing all this, that's fine. But this is more important. Justice, mercy, and what else? And faith. So justice, mercy, and faith. And I would like to compare verse 23 with verse 4 that we read before. Because verse 23 say the more important aspects of the law. Aspects of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. And in verse 4, Jesus is telling them, you crush people with unbearable religious demands and never lift a finger to ease the burden. So the word unbearable is the same Greek word for the more important. So Jesus is telling them, you are putting something very heavy on them, but you're not doing what is heavy for me. So in other words, what is more important for me. So you're putting heavy things on them that you're not even carrying. You're not even carrying. Because you forgot what is more important for me. So sometimes we want to put things on other people, but things that we're not even carrying ourselves. Because we know I cannot carry that, but I'm going to tell you to do that. I'm going to ask you to do that. I'm going to preach you to do that. But I'm not going to be able to do that. You know, and Jesus doesn't want that. So how about if before we want Jesus to transform other people's life, we let Jesus transform our lives? What about if before we want Jesus to transform my children's life, I let Jesus transform my life? What about if I want Jesus to transform your life, I let Jesus to transform my life? And when that happens, then it's going to show to the outside. And the whole sermon, this is pretty much the conclusion. So, and you are like, take it easy. Because this is not to tell us that we are hypocrites and now you can go to home and be hypocrites or do whatever you want to do. You just listened this morning that you're a hypocrite. No, that's not the point. The point here is this is an invitation for us to be honest. This is an invitation for us to be real. This is an invitation for us to work on the inside and to receive with love, justice, and mercy the reality of others. Thank you. I was like, so this should be a place to be real, don't you think so? Because if this is not a place to be real, where shall we go? Where can I be real then? If this is not a place where you can be real, where are you going to be real? At school, guys? No, you cannot be real there. That's not possible. At work? No, they're going to take over you if you're real over there. Oh, yeah, I love people. Oh, yeah, you love people? Then, you know, you want to be real on the highway? You know? So if this is not a place to be real, where are we going? I mean, what are we doing? And let me say this. Being real doesn't mean everything is going to be acceptable. Did I say that at some point in the sermon? I didn't say that. So don't think about that. Oh, so let everybody say whatever they want to say and live whatever they want. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you can be real here. And then, if there is something to do with your reality, then we are going to work as a community to work in that reality. If I have something in my reality that is not good, then I would like you to help me with that reality. So wouldn't that be great if I can be real here? If I can say morning and can say, I don't even understand this song, but John asked me to sing the song, and let's sing the song, you know? And then we can discuss about what are the things that you don't understand about the song and things like that. Or I'm really sad this morning because I had a bad conversation with Princess in the car. And I don't really want to sing, but I'm going to do it anyway. Can I be real here? You will be like, what? What is Danny doing? You know? Can I be real if I say I didn't have integrity the whole week but I'm talking about integrity. Can I be real here? Or you will be like, we need to look for another preacher. Do you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? So can it be real if I say, I don't want to be here in this place because I think it's whatever? I mean, please be real. If this is not a place for you to be real, where shall we go? So where are we going? Where are we going to find reality? And that's why sometimes guys are just going into virtual reality because they don't like this reality. And sometimes they are more real in the virtual reality than when they are in this real life. But it's our fault as well, because we're not letting people to be real. But what it means is it doesn't mean that we're going to accept everything, but it means that I'm going to be honest with me and with everybody. So in that reality, we will love and support each other, and we will live in integrity. And I think if we do so, we will live in love, in integrity, and we will be more like Jesus. God bless you.